Recording in progress. Okay, so the challenge is like this. We are in the middle of a topic, which I'm going to recap. Okay? Good? That is the plan. What topic are we in the middle of? Go on, Gideon.
The world to come.
Well to come, exactly. But I need to take like 4 steps back, just make sure everyone is on the same page. Then I'm going to take about 5 steps forward, and then we'll be all right. Okay? So like this. It is axiomatic, meaning evident or true or absolutely fundamental in Jewish thought, that we're made up of 2 parts. Yeah. Irrespective of one's how much one weighs on the scales, you're made up of only 2 parts, basically. There's the body and then there's the soul. Okay. The body is physical, is driven towards physical things. And the soul is driven to loftier, more spiritual, more, I'd call them connecting things. Because the body wants to look after itself, and the soul wants to be a little bit more expansive. Yeah. Now, the body, just for full disclosure, the body is not all negative, right? Why? I mean, in Jewish thought, we don't seek to just ignore the body, right? Yeah, meaning we actually, to an extent, feed the body as well. I don't mean just eating. I mean some of the Jewish, practice mitzvot involve the body, whether that is anything from putting on tefillin, shaking lulav, eating right at the right times is a mitzvah, etc. So we don't just shun the body; we utilize the body, right? We utilize the body. It's not that the body is like the naughty sister, so to speak, of the soul, but nevertheless, it clearly is spiritual. Excuse me, the body is physical, right? In many kind of books, it's referred to with, I'm going to update the parable, which is the spacesuit. In other words, the soul needs to be in this world. The only thing that can actually contain the soul is the body, the spacesuit. Hence, the body being the vehicle through which the soul almost exists in this world. Make sense? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to go for yes because there's a lot of people on silent, which is great.
There's a yes from me. Yes from me.
Nice, thank you.
I'm on mute, but I'm listening.
Good. All right. Very good. If I could have this mute function at home, that would be fantastic.
Presumably only on others, though.
Right. The problem is it would be used most of the time on me.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Anyway, so you've got your body that wants physical stuff, that wants to be indulged, that wants to be taken care of. I mean, all the receiving things, right? And then you've got your soul, which wants to connect and be bigger and be greater and connect to something big. And in Jewish terms, connect to God and really expand and give. Basically, most of the times we feel good about ourselves is because we connected to the soul, right? Now, I'm not going to get too religious on this. I don't mean only doing religious stuff. I mean, anytime we feel good about ourselves is because we've expanded beyond something and we feel big. That basically what you're doing is connecting to the soul, right? So if you're into running, for example, I went for a lovely run this morning. I saw 2 people who I know very well and waved at them. They had no idea who I was, which is what I call a successful rabbinic run. You feel afterwards, or even during, actually, depending on where you are and what you're listening to sometimes, and who nearly ran you over. You feel a certain sense of like expanse, bigger and greater. Right? That's a soul moment. That's not the body. Obviously, your body is working and lactic acid and it hurts, right? Lactic acid and whatever. But it's a soul moment by virtue of the fact that you're connecting to something bigger, even if you're using your body. That makes sense? Good. I'm going for a yes until told otherwise. Now, here's the thing. Body, and here's where we get a little bit more philosophically technical that we started last week. Body and soul together kind of want different things. Yeah. And the main part of us is not the body, but the soul. Meaning, if I asked you how you identify yourself, and I don't mean this in a 2025 way, right? I mean like how you identify yourself, meaning who are you? Not just what you do, but who are you? So really what you should say is, I don't know, I'm Ryan or Esther or Jonathan or Gideon or Daniel, the soul. Obviously we don't do that because most of the time we don't spare a thought for our souls at all, right? But that's who you are. You happen to need to travel the world in a body. It's a bit like asking someone on a plane, who are you? And you say, I'm a plane. Well, you're not. You're just the only way to get in the sky is with your plane around you. Yeah. It's the only way to travel this earth as you, which is your personality, your soul, what makes you you, right, is the body. That's not you. Okay. Now, again, we invest a lot of time in our bodies, and loads of industries obviously set up to cater for the bodies. Yeah. It's only the non-profits that cater to the soul. That's why they're poorer. But what's it called? But that's basically body and soul. Now, here's the really important thing, right? Given that our main thing is the soul, we did go through this. I want to go through this quickly. God had a dilemma, and it sounds a bit funny phrasing it like that. It's just for simplicity. Do you remember we said God's dilemma was he wants to give reward to the soul, because that's really where it is. The soul is the main thing, but you need to earn it. So how's that going to happen? He put us in this world with all its physical pleasures and allures and temptations and ways to succeed and opportunities. And basically said, right, here you go. Come on then, choose it. Choose good, choose bad. You're in this world. It's your choice. Hence, you can earn goodness, which is the beginning of why in Jewish thought, every challenge is inherently A, positive, and B, achievable. I don't mean it's not hard, but I mean every challenge you get is a way of God saying, "Come on, then, let's see if you can get that soul back into it." In other words, I give you a challenge which says, okay, you're in this world. There's something which is jolting or jarring or whatever. Now, be bigger. Traverse it, get around it, succeed. Okay, so we have those moments in life where we are forced to remember, actually, one second, I'm not just a body because there's stuff in the way. There's like a blockage, and I have to be bigger on occasion. Yeah. For those who need reminders to be bigger, we have children as well. Right? I don't know if you've ever seen this, where like sometimes you see your children as reflections of you. Like sometimes when they're bickering, and you're like, so silly, we're like arguing about nothing. And you're like, hold on a second. Like yesterday I felt like that, or whatever, I mean, the equivalent thereof. Anyway, so that's your body and soul. God therefore put us in this world to earn reward, make good decisions. But the real reward, and this is where we're up to, happens in pardon?
The world to come.
World to come. Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't say like Butlins or something. Yeah, the real reward happens in Waitrose. No, the real reward happens in what's called the world to come. Okay. Now, last week we explored two opinions as to what that was, but let's go with the first opinion. The world to come is effectively where you've got your souls. It sounds a bit funny, like a safari park for souls. In other words, they just roam free, loving it. Now, again, we don't know fully what that means, so we're going to deal with some of that today. But basically, here is where you earn your reward, there is where you enjoy your reward. That's the concept. And it makes sense. The truth is, any proper field has these two distinctions. There's the training pitch, and then there's where you actually experience it, right? Or you might say there's the match, and then there's lifting the trophy. You have to put in effort at the training stage, right, for the reward in the real stage. Like a job, right? Job, you have to have some form of training or some course or university course, whatever it is beforehand, apprenticeship nowadays, whatever, right? You have to do that beforehand in order to, on the day, to earn the reward, to be ready for it. Right? So God says, look, I'm giving you X amount of time in this world. You put in the effort, you turn up to training, you make good decisions, you don't get angry, don't get flustered, grow, be big, be better, pass challenges. And the next world, you'll get it very good. Right? It is so the opposite, if you don't mind me saying, of some other religions where they would say, like, suffer a little bit in this world, right? And abstain and hold yourself back and etc. And next world will be really good and physical. Right? There are other religions that promise physical reward in their version of the next world, right? We're not like that at all. We say don't suffer in this world, push yourself, make good decisions, you live life to the max in terms of what's really going to be long-term pleasurable and growth orientated, right? And connect to that soul. And in the next world, you'll enjoy it even more. Right? The way other people say it, and it's a little bit teasing, but I think it works. Yeah, I bet we've never done this before, but I imagine you had to once upon a time like tune an aerial. Is that so? You had to do something to an aerial to get it to work. I'm imagining.
Radios, you have to twiddle dials to be able to hear radios.
Yeah, that's good enough. That's good enough for me. You have to tune the dials to be ready for radios, whatever it is, right? This world is basically where you tune yourself such that you can enjoy the reward in the next world. If you're not tuned for it, right, then it just then if you're not then what reward is going to like satisfy you? There's a bit of a crude way to say it. That's the other way they kind of say it. Yeah, a little bit like I had some friends who duped their child into thinking that rice cakes were like the biggest gift the world could give. Yeah, the child literally thought like, rice. Oh, I want a rice cake, here, rice cake. Yeah, like poor kid didn't realize there was sweets, chocolates, like all the stuff that is actually unhealthy and we really want, right? To an extent, without getting too mussery, we also kind of get duped and don't tune ourselves as to what the real pleasure is in this world. Okay, anyway, that's enough of that. So we're in this world, we're aiming towards the world to come, we're earning rewards, loyalty points, whatever you want to call them, and we're tuning ourselves to the next world. Now, the big question is, this is where we're up to, I wanted to deal with. Sorry for going a little bit quick, but the real question is, okay, if you've got this big thing called the world to come, and that's like the focal point, the destination, the summer holiday, whoever it is, why doesn't it in our books in the Torah get mentioned like the whole time? As you'd expect, when sometimes you're trying to bribe someone with something, right? You ever had this with your kids? Like it's just 2 weeks till the best summer holiday ever. You're going to Thailand, you're going to Hungary, you're going to wherever you're going, Israel, right? It's 2 weeks. Just hold it in. Enough bickering. We'll be in the beach in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. You'd want to mention that the whole time, no? Isn't that like something you'd like be interested in mentioning? If you're writing a book of the religion and the main thing is the world to come, that's where reward is. That's where everything you do here is going to be like rewarded and analyzed. Like, shouldn't that get a mention the whole time? No,
Yeah, I think there should be more of it than there is.
there certainly is. Yeah, because there's hardly anything in the Torah itself. In the rabbinic writings, you've got loads. In the Torah itself, I don't know if this is news to you, Ryan. You just let us know. In the Torah itself, it basically hardly mentions the world to come. Right? Hardly. It hints to it here. It says if you do this wrong, you won't get the world to come. But it's like, and what's more, yeah, what's more, and again, tell me if this is either new or shocking or whatever. When the Torah does talk about rewards, right, what does it say? So it says, oh, if you do mitzvah, if you do really well, connect to God, so we'll give you money and we'll give you, rain in the right time. Right? Talk about stereotypically Jewish. We'll give you money. That's not the point at all. Like, it's actually remarkable. When Nebuch they were talking about the damages and all the terrible things that these Iranian missiles have caused. Yeah, I say this slightly tongue in cheek, but we must be the only religion when they totaled up their things on like websites, they said X number of people killed, Nebuch, X number of people injured, and X number of insurance claims made. Yeah, that apparently is a stat. Right? In other words, when we report, Nebuch missiles, you have to, yeah, insurance numbers claimed, etc. The fiscal stats. But why is it when the Torah talks about reward, why does it say you have good rain, like good crops, you'll have peace? It's all very nice, but that's not reward. Do you know what I mean?
It,
That's
it
not
must
reward.
be because that you have to be able to test it. Something along those lines, maybe. So Hashem saying, if you do these things, then you'll get the rain in the right season, and you can test it. And of course, this is just the most light hint of what will come in the world to come, which is where you'll really get the reward. But you can't experience that, you can't test that. So maybe it's along those lines.
You mean it's like when you walk into when you walk into these department stores and they spray you with perfume, whether or not you want it. It's like a
Uh,
sample. It's like a sample.
okay.
Is that what you're saying, Gideon?
I was saying more that it's something concrete that you can test, meaning Hashem's telling you about the rewards that you can test in this world by doing good mitzvahs. Then I will give
Uh-huh.
you these rewards in this world. Of course, that's not the full thing. The full thing is going to be what will happen in the world to come, but that you can't test until you're dead, and therefore that's not so practical for you.
In other words, we want something tangible.
Yeah.
I hear that. Okay, good. So hold on. I'll hold that thought. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. The last time I did it particularly. Oh, here we are. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so you might need to pinch your screen a little bit for it. Okay. So there are actually 7 different answers to this question. Yeah. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm actually going to just pick 2. We've only got 11 minutes left. There's 7 answers. Why is it when the Torah talks about reward? It's a technical question, but it opens up something really important. Why does it not talk about kind of real reward, meaning the next world? Right? Why do we not do that? Let me just, for those who don't know me, by the way, Ryan, yeah, I just have loads of tabs open. That's just who I am. I know, I get people get nauseous, but that's just me. If it bothers anyone, then I can try and reduce it by like 2 next week if you want. I'm just that kind of guy. Even if I had 3 computers in front of me and I was a financial analyst, I'd still have 11 tabs on each. Um,
I think
yeah.
you'll find that's a lot more than 11 there.
It may very well be, yes. It's true. We move on. I don't know who's put who's been counting on the group, Jonathan. What are you saying? Um, okay, right. So, okay, the first view here is the Rambam. Yeah, it's a really important one because I think there's a real lesson for each of these 2 answers I want to share. Really important. So I'm going to do this, even though of course you can see the Hebrew here. I'm going to do this in English. He says like this: when the Torah speaks about physical rewards, yeah, it's talking about what God is going to do for you in order to continue achieving what you need to achieve. So let me just read that and explain. First is the Rambam. When the Torah speaks of physical reward, all this is not referring to the primary reward. The goodness and bad mentioned refer to the removal of impediments alone. Meaning, if we keep mitzvot, Hashem will assist us by removing all these horrible things, providing the wherewithal to perform more mitzvot. Okay, we're going to
So
talk
there,
about
the
that.
idea is that if you're doing mitzvahs, Hashem sees you want to do mitzvahs. Hashem makes it easy for you to do mitzvahs. And one of the things Hashem can do to make it easy for you to do mitzvahs is, for example, make sure you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay the rent. So it gives
Yeah,
you extra
yeah,
money.
yeah.
That type of idea.
Yeah. Now, before you get, for what everyone shouts, we have got a separate set of classes. We're not up to there yet. We'll get to there about why do some good people suffer. We're going to deal with that. Okay. That's not this. This is the kind of rule, and why do good people suffer? We'll deal with that. That's more of an exception, but it does need addressing. Okay. Here we're saying like this. Now, I want to couch it in the following terms. One of the big important parenting no-nos is to over reward your child. You might say, well, what are you talking about? Right? What are you talking about? My son is the first grandchild on both sides. Yeah, that is an absolute recipe for being spoiled. Yeah, total recipe for being spoiled. Yeah. Here's the issue. If you over reward someone for doing something good, they stop caring about the good and they start caring about the reward. Yeah. In other words, you tell someone, go and visit your grandma each week and I'll buy you a car. Yeah. What do you think they're thinking about now? The car. And what you've done is you've moved them off the goodwill of visiting grandma, and now all they care about is the car. In other words, you've basically undermined their altruism. It sounds funny, right? You know what I mean? Right? If, however, what you do is you give them a nice kind of reward just to encourage them to carry on, that's great. Right? Especially if it's after the fact. In other words, if it's not part of the motivation, go visit grandma and I'll buy you a milkshake, but you visited grandma, right? And then afterwards, you're like, you did really well. I'm going to get you a milkshake, right? All that does is that affirms or acknowledges or reinforces that what they've done is good. But they haven't done it for the milkshake. They're just now happy that they've done it because you've given them a milkshake, right? In fact,
My wife, when she gives speech therapy to the kids, she actually is upgraded. You know, those chocolate sprinkles, those tiny
oh,
things
I know
that you can't
everything
even see. They're
chocolate.
so small.
Yeah.
They're so tiny you can't even see them. So they used to do amazing things for one of those. She's now upgraded to a jelly bean. If they do good, then they get a jelly bean. So
Shh.
there's a
Nice.
so
Very
yeah,
nice.
never mind
Yeah.
cars, just a jelly bean, and they'll do whatever she
Very
needs.
nice. But in social psychology, by the way, it's called association or cognitive association, whereby it's a very clever thing. They gave 2 groups of people a book to read. One of them they gave fizzy drinks to as well. right? And they read the book with fizzy drinks. Anyway, the group that were reading with fizzy drinks, they rated the book higher. Sorry, the group that were reading with fizzy drinks, they rated it higher because they associated the pleasure from the fizzy drinks with the exercise of reading. We do it the whole time. We do it the whole time. Event planners do it the whole time. A nice extra something on the table or whatever. It is basic human psychology, right? So if you reward someone slightly after the fact and they feel good, then they're going to feel good doubly for having done it and for having been rewarded. So the Rambam here is saying, don't confuse end goal reward with what I call facilitating reward. In other words, sometimes you want to reward someone by saying, look, you've taken 2 hours out your day to visit grandma. I'm going to help you with another 2 hours of your day, whatever it is, right? And that way you'll be able to visit grandma more, or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? In other words, what you're doing there is that's not the reward for visiting grandma. By the way, I'm not saying people only need bribing to visit grandma. Hopefully they'll visit them anyway. Yeah. But in whatever the endeavor is, whatever the enterprise is, the reward is the main reward is the next world. That's fine. What the Torah is saying here is Hashem says, look, if you want to invest in me, I'm happy to invest in you. In other words, if you're working for a finance company and making deals, yeah, so God says, look, you're part of the team. I'm going to pay your expenses, right? I'll make sure you can do those deals. In other words, I'll make sure if you're invested in what I care about, meaning mitzvot, you're working for the company, right? So Hashem says, fine, I'll take care of some of those issues that, ordinarily would distract you, and that will allow you to do more. Right? In other words, the Torah is not talking end reward, it's talking about in this world what God can do for you. Yeah, it's a lovely concept, it's an important concept. There's a lot more to say about it, but that's the Rambam's idea. In other words, the Torah isn't talking about the world to come, either because we can't understand it fully, we don't have the concepts for it, but the Torah is talking about the kind of working, the what we call the expenses. Hashem says, right, you're doing it for me, as you're doing good things in life, I'll invest in you, and great. You'll have more time to put in the things that are actually worthwhile. By the way, I don't know about you, we know this very well. In other words, there's some tasks in life that can take a minute or can take hours. That's just how it works, right? I last night, no, on Monday, Esther, actually, thanks to your husband, he alerted me to this. I thought someone had basically committed fraud on my bank account. I bought something in America and NatWest shut down my bank account. It wasn't on my app. I got totally panicked about it, right? It took me an hour to get my bank account up and running. I called this fraud team. They were like, well, call them in the morning. They're not available. I was like, but you're the fraud team. What do you mean you're not available? I'm just someone stealing my money now. Yeah, whatever it is, right? But in the end, it got back up. It took an hour. This afternoon, I had to make a call about something to do with American Express, and it took 3 minutes. I got through, it took 3 minutes. It was great. In other words, we know there's certain things in life that can either take ages or can go very quickly. Right? The Rambam says, if you're investing in God's team, meaning you're doing good things, you're succeeding in your challenges, Shem says, fine, I'm going to invest in you. That's great. Right? I'm going to give you the wherewithal. That is one idea. We went through that a bit quickly, but I think it's powerful. I'm going to give you one other view over here, which is like this. This is an amazing thing. This is really cool. It says like this. Is this one over here, the third view. So he says like this. Oh, hello. Why is it the Torah talks about physical rewards and doesn't really talk about the spiritual rewards? There's the next world. It says because spiritual rewards are natural. Like you've got a soul. Obviously, your soul isn't getting rewarded in this world. Obviously, the next world is the natural place. Right? Isn't that so? Obviously, the next world is where it's at. Right? That's not supernatural that your soul is going to get rewarded in the next world. What is supernatural is that if you do things in this world will respond to you. Meaning God will set it up that if you do, if you behave well or whatever, he'll invest money with you. It will rain at the right time or crops will grow or whatever. That's a miracle. Right? That's a miracle that this world should respond to you, even though God set it up like that, but that's a bit supernatural. That the soul gets rewarded in the next world. Okay, very nice. That's obviously it's the soul. That's where it's supposed to be. It's its natural place. But that this world can change based on our actions, that's a bit of a miracle. Everyone hear that? In other words, the
Yeah.
Torah is accentuating that which you kind of wouldn't expect. Sorry, go on.
No, I hear that. I think that was just someone saying we get that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really, it's crucial, but that's important. I just think the lesson from there, and I know it's a bit heavy to go straight into this text, but I think the lesson from there is work out, I know it sounds funny, what's miraculous and what's not. In other words, we view certain things as like norms. Some of them are quite sad, actually, negative, right? In others, our kids will grow up thinking it's normal to have security outside at least Jewish schools and shuls. That's like normal because right, it's not really normal. In other words, it really shouldn't be that way. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean the amount we've like given to the world and taught the world, like it shouldn't be like that at all. Right. But that's a norm, right? Sometimes we get so used to norms that we don't realize like what's a bit out of place, right? And sometimes we get so used to norms, we don't realize the miracles. But without getting too emotional and lovey-dovey and fluffy, like every baby is a miracle. It just is, the fact that the baby exists and is born and safe arrival, so to speak, that is basically a miracle. If you had to describe the process of labor to an alien, right? I probably don't do it in front of your wife or whatever because she'll say it's so insensitive and it was much harder than that, right? But they think like, oh my goodness, what, that people can lose people like that and it grows inside with everything it needs, and when it comes out, everything changes and it no longer like it breathes and then it takes in oxygen, like and that suddenly it did survive within and with underwater, so to speak, and now it can't. Like that's a miracle. It's just we're just too used to it. Right, even to an extent, some of produce and plant life, etc. That's we're just used to it. We're just used to it, right? So the two lessons for tonight, I'm just going to summarize, are number one, body and soul, work out priority. Yeah, number one. I don't mean don't invest in the body, absolutely do, but make sure you find the soul within that. Number one. Number two is these two reasons for the world to come not being mentioned overtly in the Torah. Yeah, meaning firstly, the expenses versus real reward. And secondly, you've got this what's natural and what's supernatural. In other words, defining norms and defining status quos. Make sense?
Thank you very much.
Next week, pleasure. Next week, we're actually starting a new topic. Please God, we should be on for next week. Next week, we're starting a new topic, and that is the topic of miracles. Now, truth is, if you want, you can let me know. We could actually go straight into why bad things happen to good people. It's like an amazing topic. But I thought what we could do is we could start with miracles. In other words, what is a miracle, defining it, types of miracles, etc. Let's go. Currently, we'll go for miracles, but if enough people email and message me saying, actually, I'd rather learn about why bad things happen to good people, we'll do that instead.
Both sound great. Thank you very much. Shkoyach.
All right. Good to see everyone. Ryan, well done for lasting the course. You've done it. Well done. Half an hour.
Thank you
Well
very
done.
much.
Good to
Thank
see
you,
you.
Rebecca.
Take care.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.